Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bobo Potzner, and if I got a great show for you, not because of me, but because I have one of my all-time favorite guests. I love all my guests, but this one has been on the most time, and it's Michele Phillips. And I'm very proud of Michele, and you'll hear about why I'm proud of her when you hear what she's going to talk about today, which is her creation of her own podcast. And I've listened to all 8 editions of her podcast. They're all excellent. And what's really makes me proud of her is that she's been talking about this for a long time, and now she's done it. And that actually goes to part of the theme of her podcast, which is called Write Your Own Outcome. And P.S., we're both wearing yellow today, but that's by happenstance. Hi, Michele. How are you?
I am fabulous, and I am just happy to be here with you, Bobbio.
That is fantastic. Let me start right out with having you just give a little background about yourself, even though you've been on the show many times and told about what you do. Some people may not have watched the show before. Shock, shock. So let's hear about a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into the topic of today.
Thank you. The really short version is I help people write their outcome for their personal and professional lives. I've been doing this for 25 years in Fortune 100 companies. So I work with individuals, executives from the bottom to the top. I work with everyone. I work with intact teams, personal folks, and really helping them tap into their own strength and power and help them write an outcome that excites and delights them.
And it's just amazing because you're so positive and you're so enthusiastic. And as I've listened to your podcast, and we've talked hundreds of times, and I learned everything. Every time I talk to you, I learned something new. And I learned in your podcast that we're not always as we are today. There's actually a guest I have coming up, in September 24th, and I sent you some of her songs. And one of her songs is it's about how she is the whole time is what it's called, and it's about how she is today, but she was always that person, and she's gotten to be where she is, but it's always been within her. And I think if I were to pick a theme of your podcast, of you as a wonderful person, and of the shows we've done, is that you focus on being who you are. And that's not what you call it, but you always talk about, it always comes back to being who you are. And we talk about that offline, online. And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about how it is you developed a podcast and sort of get into the theme that you've talked about. And then we're going to break the theme down into small bites.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings is evolve or repeat. So we're all here on a journey. We're all here learning something. Everybody's at a different level of their journey. So once you learn your lessons, you evolve. And then there's new lessons and you evolve again. So I am an expert at helping people see the positive side of everything. So if you just got divorced, I know you're a lawyer, if you lost your job, if you're looking for love, you feel like you can't find love, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get a promotion and you feel discouraged, I am the queen. I am an expert at helping you see the lesson so that you could get to where you want to be. So I've been doing this for so long. And, over the years, it was always like, Michele, you should have a podcast. You should have a podcast. I was like, I don't know if I want a podcast, but here I am with the podcast. And 8 episodes in, it has been fabulous. It has been very energizing. And again, it has been just a blessing to talk to people and help people learn from each other's stories. So that's what I'm enjoying about the podcast.
One of my favorite quotes, and the books behind me, I've read about 80% of them. And my goal is to finish them before I buy any new books, which never happens. I always buy the next book. But I also keep, as you know, Michele, a list of quotes. And it's now about 150 pages. And maybe someday I'll put that into a podcast, do 150 shows on my podcast.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I love that.
And one of the great quotes was written by Tom Friedman, who's a New York Times editorial writer. And he was quoting, and it's in one of his books, and he was quoting from a theme from Texas, not my favorite state right now, but they do have some good themes. And one of the quotes is, if all you ever do is all you've ever done, then all you'll ever be is all you've ever been. And that's an amazing, I read that probably 15 years ago. And there's certain quotes that stick with me. And that's one of them. And it ties in to what you just talked about a little about your podcast. You've taken a chance to do the podcast. It takes some guts, chutzpah. You've told, I mean, some very personal stories about you, some things you didn't even tell me. Well, I just know some you haven't told you on the podcast. So those are blackmail. The first time we had dinner today, I think you were eating off my plate within 30 seconds, and I loved it. That was great. But talk to me about how you created the podcast, how you went about organizing a podcast. What were the steps you took for those who don't know how that's done?
Well, I hired a company. So I'm really, long story short, I'm working with a fabulous branding company that's helping me curate and figure things out. And they do all the editing. So one of the things I thought was, I don't have time for this, but they're like, we're going to do it for you. You do the recording and we'll do the editing. But again, it's new. So really learning how to ask the right questions. I really want people to open up. I thank you for saying I'm genuine, because I want us to learn from each other's stories. Thank you for also saying I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. So I think the more we can embrace the shadow, the dark side, that, everyone on social media, what do they say? We show everybody the highlight reel, not the behind the scenes. Each of us is working on something, but hopefully if you are evolving, you look at your life today and you say, oh my gosh, it's so much better than it was a year ago, 2 years ago. But if you're still in the same cycle of doubt, of complaining, of not getting what you want, the only one to blame is you. And that sounds so harsh, but no one is standing in the way of your success but ourselves. So it's really, all of my work is about helping people go inside. What is the fear? What is the doubt? What is the belief I have that is keeping me from what I want? Because if there's something in your life that you don't have, let me say it right. If there's something you want in your life and you don't have it, it's because you have a belief that tells you it's not coming. So I work with people's thought process. The way we think is a habit, and successful people I'm sorry, I'm getting on a tangent. The reason people are successful is because they know what they want and they believe they can have it.
One of the hard things, however, is deciding what you want. Yeah. And I sent you a clip today. I have a lot of favorite clips, and so do you. And sometimes they're not even planned when we get into our conversations on the show. But I sent you a clip from the movie City Slickers from 1991. I mean, how could that movie have come out 34 years ago? I mean, I'm only 11 years old now, really. But
you don't look a day over 12.
And you look that way too. And the theme of the show essentially is a person is hitting age 30 or 40, and the person goes to a dude ranch, so to speak. Billy Crystal's in the show with Jack Palance. And at one point in time in the show, Billy Crystal's character says to the cowboy, who's been a cowboy all his life, what's the key to life? What's the key to life? And I'm not going to quote exactly what the cowboy said, but he put his finger up like this and said, one. And Billy Crystal says, well, what's one? The cowboy said, you find the one thing that you love in life and you build your life around it. And then Billy Crystal said, well, how do I know what that one thing is? The cowboy says, figure it out yourself. Now that ties in, and I don't know if you've seen that clip before.
I saw that movie probably 34 years ago.
That's our first date, right? So anyway, so the thing is that, but you think about the things you're going to talk about in your various themes of your various podcasts, and that comes through in several of the podcasts that I heard. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. And here's the thing. People do know what they want. We all know what we want. You know what you want. However, we're sometimes afraid to admit what we want. I kind of call it the unspoken rules of society. When I was growing up, my parents never said the words to me, but it was expected that I go to college, that I get married, that I buy a house, that I have a couple children, and I live happily ever after. And so we follow what we think we should do versus what we want to do. So that's the big thing. When you can identify what you want, and I decided not to have children, that was a conscious decision. I decided 25 years ago, I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea what that meant. I probably didn't even know how to spell it back then, but I took a leap of faith in August of 2000. I started my own business because I knew that I wanted to run workshops. Coaching wasn't even a thing back then. So I was scared. I didn't know exactly what, the future held, but I knew it was what I wanted. And, you'll appreciate this, Bob. It's what's that, I don't remember which war it was when they get to the beach and they burn the ships. So sometimes you have to make a decision and take a step forward towards what you want. And in the war scenario, they burn the ships when they get to the shore because they're like, we're going to win this war. We're not getting back on those ships. So asking yourself right now, what would I do if no one else's opinion mattered, will lead you to what you want.
As I heard you speaking, I have like 8 comments about that. But one would be, I'm thinking about the Rolling Stones, right? You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. By the way, my favorite concert I ever saw was in 1979 or 80 in Hartford, Connecticut with the Rolling Stones. What was your favorite concert, by the way, of all time?
Yeah. Wow. I went to see, oh my God, now I'm going to date myself too. I went to see the Eagles, Little River Band, and Heart at Giant Stadium. I think I was in high school, and I know I got grounded because I stayed out way too late.
Why did you come up with the name, or how'd you come up with the name of, how'd you come up with the name with Write Your Own Outcome as the name for your podcast? We're laughing together. If we don't laugh 83 times in every 10-minute telephone call, it's not us.
So it's interesting. So I am working with a new branding company, and we were just interviewing. They were interviewing me. What do you do? How do you help people? And I kept just telling the story. And really, for me, it says alarmingly enthusiastic under my name because somebody wrote that on one of my evaluations many years ago. Because I'm just so good at seeing the good in everything. Like even someone will say to me, "My father was an alcoholic, so I'm an alcoholic." But the brother will say, my father was an alcoholic, so I'm not an alcoholic. Every subject has 2 sides. So I will help you take whatever event happens in your life, and be it a tragedy, and look at the bright side of it. Not that there's a bright side of tragedy, but meaning something, if it's not fixable, it's a fact. So I say, if, something that you could fix is fixable. But like I lost my dad about 2 years ago. That's a fact. But I could choose to be in despair for X amount of months, or I could choose to grieve normally. I'm not saying I don't grieve, but then to look at it in each and every one of us is not here forever. None of us was meant to be here forever, and God knows what he's doing. And when I say those words to myself, I feel relief. And when I feel relief, my emotions rise. So that's the idea of helping people talk themselves up, what I call the emotional ladder, write a new outcome with the same ingredients, not changing the events.
One thing about you is that from when I've known you, I did not know you were a rageaholic back when you were a kid. We'll get to that in a moment. But in fact, I once said to you several times, the next time you're on the LIE, Long Island Expressway, if you get in a rage situation, call me. And you did call me one time.
I did.
You're going. But, one thing about you, and I think it comes through in your podcast, is that you're very comfortable in your own skin. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. In fact, one of my friends from Yale, I hadn't seen in many years, said to me, Reese called me. We got together, and he was complaining about something, and he had some issues that he wanted to ask me about. And he said, Bobby O, of all the guys I knew at Yale, you were the guy who was most comfortable in your skin. I'm saying, what? I mean, I went from a public high school. You guys were all from fancy schmancy prep schools and all that. And that was quite a compliment. And so I've given you that compliment back because you are who you are. And you put it on your sleeve from the first time I met you. Bobby O, please watch my suitcases in the airport. What?
Yes.
And then of course, the favorite part of all is when the stewardess said, that lady wants you to sit next to her on the plane. And it was you. And we're talking, and you said, by the way, what's your sign? Scorpio. So's mine. And then you told me your birthday. It's the same as mine, although I'm older.
It was Bershut. How do I say it?
For sure. Yeah. It was for sure. It was fate. It was our soulmates. But then, of course, the key of who we are, as I said to you, show me your driver's license. I don't believe you to have the same birthday I did. Right? And you looked at me and said, what? And of course, it was November 5th. Having said that, let's talk a little bit about how you're putting your shows together. You have the first couple of shows, and actually there's one later on, number 6 or 7, where you just had yourself and no guests. How are you putting your themes together as you do each show? Is it just what comes to you? Or do you have
let me back up to your point about being genuine, because I wish you could see the grin on my face when I watched your opening to your show, because I mean, you're like this in front of the flowers, and it's like, it says, this is who I am. And the biggest thing, so many people are trying to be something for someone else. My mother said I should be this, or my father, or, I was always told I talk too much, I talk too loud, I'm too excitable. Those are the things that make me me.
That's why we love you. That's why we love you for those things.
So it's all about, who you are, and then owning it. So if I say to you, Bobby O, you are a genuine person, and you don't believe it, so I give you a compliment and you don't believe it, there's a disconnect. But when I say, Bobby O, you're so genuine, and I love your opening to your show, and you believe it, you see how much stronger that is? So you become strong in the core of who you are. So to flip to your next question, the podcast is...
Before you do that, can I do one thing before you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, just one comment. I did a show, I think last week, on a very sophisticated sports concept called NIL. And I had 2 very well-known people who knew the topic. And one of the guys put me on Twitter. And that show got tons of hits, thousands of hits. And he said, but one person didn't want to watch the show because he didn't like the opening. And he said thought it was goofy. And I can't say on the air what I said to my friend about the show, but about the comment. But I said blank you, because that's who I am. I mean, that's who I am.
Well, so now you got me on another tangent. So there's a great story that back when Prince was brand new, the Rolling Stones had Prince open up for them. And when Prince came out, they booed him off the stage because it was a Rolling Stones crowd, not a Prince crowd. And when Prince got off the stage, he said, oh, that's not my audience, right? So we're not everybody's cup of tea. So it's looking for the believers, looking for the people that do resonate with you. And Prince found his own audience. It was different than the Rolling Stones. So that's what I would say to those people who don't like the opening, because you can't please everyone. You know that.
That's right. And by the way, I'm not a big Prince fan. I never really was. But when I heard that comment on one of your podcasts about Prince, I gave him a standing ovation, because you know what, you got to be who you are, and that's part of what you do in your shows. Let's go to in your first couple of shows, if I may. I want everybody at the end. We're gonna tell you how to help you how to find your podcast. But I liked in your first couple of shows. One was called Welcome to Write Your Outcome, and the second was called Set the Table for Success. Tell me about some of those comments you had there, because I think it was very good in how it set up the stage for what you have done in your later shows with your guests.
Yeah, basically, I have determined steps to write your outcome. So, and it's more than just it's more than just, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more than just knowing what you want, but it's also knowing how you feel about what you want. So in Write Your Outcome, you have to first know what you want. What's going on? What do you want? Then you say, I want to go to Greece on a vacation. Then you have to ask yourself, how do I feel about that? Because this is where your beliefs come in. If you believe that this is something that can happen for you, the fact that you want to go to Greece, whoops, my ear plug is falling out, my earpiece, is exciting, and you start planning a trip. But if you don't believe it, you stop yourself and you doubt yourself, and you fall down this ladder of emotions. So once you know what you want, then you ask yourself, how does this make me feel? Does it feel like I could do this? And if you feel great, you keep going. If you don't, I introduce what I call the ladder up technique and the ladder of emotions. So really briefly, what that is, a lot of people, if you're not feeling good about something, we want to immediately feel great. So we want to move from feeling low to feeling high. And if you think about your emotions as energy, what's at the bottom of emotions? Depression, can't move, can't get out of bed, I don't even have the energy to get dressed. That's a very low emotion. But if you could get to jealousy, anger, you're moving yourself up the emotional scale. One one rung. Imagine you're climbing a ladder, one rung at a time. So instead of what people do when they're feeling bad and they want to jump, they drink, they shop, they eat, all these addictive behaviors. You have to say to yourself, I want to go to Greece. I'm not sure I can. So I'm not, I'm feeling depressed. And
I
then
want
go
to
on.
ask you one question if I can,
I'm
Michelle.
going on. Yeah.
In your show, by the way, in your background, you're hearing someone cutting the grass because I don't cut the grass.
I know the same thing happens here all the time.
But it's interesting how open you are on your podcast, as you are with me in all my shows. But you talked about the word jealousy, and you said in that show, that's number 7, about all emotions, good, bad, or indifferent, are energy. There's some sort of energy that exists, and I was a little surprised to hear Michele Phillips has a little jealousy in her because, I mean, you have so many positive traits, and the bad traits you somehow have hidden from me all these years. But when you said you had some jealousy, and I don't see you as a competitive person, but then I thought about it and said to be successful in your career, because of all the shows you've done, at least 4 or 5 other ladies in different ways do similar things, not the same as you, but similar things to you. And it's tough to get a CEO in Kansas City, Missouri to hire you versus somebody else. So you got to be competitive. There's nothing wrong with being competitive.
I'm working with a CEO in Kansas City, right? Kansas.
Yeah, well, I actually did that. I just picked that out.
It's so funny because I do have a company that I work with.
Well, I know because you sent me an email saying you were from Kansas, and I think I wrote back to you saying you better check the barbecue out because it's probably the best barbecue in the world. But my point is, it's competitive, and there's nothing wrong with being competitive. Do you think when I go to court for my clients, I hate to use the word win in court because I do a lot of domestic litigation, and I don't like to think of you beat the husband, you beat the wife in terms of beat's the wrong word. You defeated the husband or wife, because I think that there's a lot more to family law litigation than winning. Because if you win all the time, you're going to hurt people, right? And so you want it. But anyway, tell me about your jealousy and how you use that in a positive way. The fact that you have some jealousy and competitive.
So what I want people to know with the emotional ladder is, so think about depression, jealousy, anger, revenge, disappointment, overwhelm, frustration, boredom, hope, contentment, happiness, joy, elevated, right? So the emotions go from low to high. And the biggest thing with an emotion is once you can name it, it doesn't have power over you anymore. So what happens is 90% of people are running around just, slave to their emotions. Somebody cuts them off in traffic and it ruins their day. They get up on the wrong side of the bed. All these emotions are normal human emotions. But once you name it, you get to move away from it. And men, I'm going to say this, women have a higher they have a bigger spectrum of socially acceptable emotions. Unfortunately, men, like we shrink it. Like you're allowed to show us this many emotions in public, even though you have all of them. So it's not that the emotion is bad, it's what you do next. And that's where I want you to write your outcome.
You were in my head today as I'm driving from my office. You were in my head today as I was driving from my office in Danbury to my office at home. And about 3 miles from my house, I'm on a 2-lane highway, Route 7 in the Danbury, and a car is turning left. I'm in the left-hand lane, so I stop for that, and somebody behind me starts honking the horn. And I said, "No, Bob, you can't show the middle finger because you're going to see Michele in a few minutes, and I can't do that." So I had to I'm thinking about the ladder of emotions. So will you stop getting in my head, please?
Well, that's a good thing. Hopefully it's helping.
It helps a lot. You talked about in that particular show, self-soothing. Tell me how that. I mean, look at Bobby O takes notes, right? I mean,
I love it. You're so good. Thank you for asking. So self-soothing is.
What's that? Yeah.
If there was a 2-year-old in the room with us and the 2-year-old started having a temper tantrum, you would do everything you could to distract this child. You would be like, look at the keys, come look out the window, look at the birds, right? You try to take them out of this swirling volcano of emotions. It's the same with us. When our emotions start swirling, it's like almost like a tornado inside of us. And we need to learn, except you can't see it, we need to learn how to self-soothe. So really it comes from distracting yourself. If you're too caught up in an angry emotion or uncomfortable emotion, it's sometimes best to distract yourself by phoning a friend, listening to a podcast, watching a funny YouTube clip, going outside. Because once you take the distraction, you take the breath. And once you take the breath, you can make a better decision. So it's not the world. I always say the world is not going to change to please us as much as we want it to. But when we learn how to manage our own nervous system and self-soothe ourselves, and we will be so much better off. And sometimes if the tornado is going way too fast, the only way you could self-soothe is to be in a bad mood for the rest of the day and start over tomorrow.
But you also gave some cautionary remarks about the self-soothing, and you mentioned that some people self-soothe by drinking or doing alcoholic beverages. Diet Dr. Pepper is allowed, I think, but drinking or overeating, or actually you said oversexing. I didn't want to get into that one, but you mentioned, I'm not sure how that is.
All the addictive behaviors count.
Okay, that's right. But and you were talking about soothing yourself with your internal strength. That's what you're talking about, building yourself up, right?
Yeah, you have a 24/7 dialogue going with yourself. So you have what I call the inner critic and the inner coach. And whoever you give more attention to is who talks loudest to you. So I ask people to ask their inner coach, help me, help me. I always, sometimes like if I'm in a really bad way, I say, please help me see this another way because it's already happening. So help me see this another way. And once I can see it another way, I could soothe myself. There's a lot of people that are very angry, but you don't influence people with anger. You influence people with presence. In the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins, he talks about the vibrations of emotions, and the emotions of love vibrate 10,000 times higher than anger or fear or envy. So it's when you're angry, you're not helping anybody. You're the one getting the brunt of your anger, right? Every fight you pick is with yourself. Every fight you pick is with yourself. But when you could get to those emotions of love and acceptance, now you are a powerful force for good and change in the world. There's a big difference.
You and I usually don't talk politics, but everything in this day and age is politics. And if you're saying those things, those comments, I'm thinking, I wish you could talk to our president, who, when he got bad employment records last week, how does he go from depression to the top? He fires a person who does the mathematics, statistics, and says, here's what the truth is, and he fires that person. And I would say to myself, gee, I wish Michele would talk to him and say, wait a minute, isn't there a different way? Maybe what you could do is say, how could I do different things so that next month's records will be better, as opposed to firing that person? And so that ties into, you said when one of your podcasts that everyone has good qualities. Some of us, it's harder to find the good qualities than others.
Well, everyone is contributing to the world in some way. And, just like they always say, the Bible is a series of things to do and things not to do. So some are like, here's how you should behave, and here's the cautionary tales. So I think each person has to ask themselves, how do I want to show up? How do I want to carry myself? And, in Power versus Force, I love the example of pushing. So if I was pushing your hand, Bobby, if I said, give me your hand, and we were pushing, you would give me pressure. But the minute I stop pushing, you stop pushing. So someone who stands in power, like a Winston Churchill or a Gandhi, it's a much stronger place to be than in forcing, your opinions and decisions on other people. So again, we are in a great awakening right now. Some people are going to get it and take this higher road. Others are going to fight. But again, each of us has a choice to create and write our outcome. And that's what I want to teach people.
That is a segue to Patricia Stark's show. She was podcast number 3, in which I think it was called "It Starts from Within."
Yeah.
And That's one of the shows that I listen to while walking, so I don't have a lot of notes about that. But I was very impressed with that kind of comment about how you take the strength that you have and do the best that you can. And as you said in another show, no one's perfect. No one is perfect. And I think the podcast, probably podcast 7, it might have been 6 or 7, in which I think you said, let's get the word perfect out of the dictionary, right? And you had a different word, which escapes me right now, but striving to be the best you can be. Coach K, a Duke basketball coach, used to say, every player has and runs his own race. Everybody runs his or her own race. And I think in your podcast, you were saying about how she was even, you didn't say even, but you said you were jealous about someone who, why didn't I get that? Or why didn't I get that? Or I might say, why did that person hire me and not someone else? Or my father had a bakery business down the street from another bakery business. And if someone bought a cupcake down there, I'd say, wait a minute, my father's cupcakes are better. And so the question is, coming from ourselves within, Patricia Stark and you, we talked about being the best you can be and appreciating people and dealing with things you don't like that way. Any comments about that?
Yeah, because we're all so unique. Nobody is ever, there will never be another Bobby O on the planet. Never. Your fingerprints, your thoughts, your heart will never be replicated. And anyone listening, nobody's will. So it's really about being, I do get jealous, but I always say it's being able to shine together and to let everyone have their path of growth. And it does start from within. So the more I love and appreciate myself, the more my love almost bubbles up and then it overflows and then I have more to share. But a lot of people are so busy in everybody else's business. This one shouldn't do that and that one, and they can't even keep their own house in order. So it really is about really finding your North Star, knowing what you're good at, alarmingly enthusiastic. I keep laughing because somebody wrote that on my eval. I don't know who it was, but I think they didn't mean it as a nice comment, but
Really?
I
I think,
adopted it and said,
you
you know what? This is my special thing. What's your special thing?
alarmingly enthusiastic is an oxymoron, actually, because why would it be alarm? I mean, going back to when I first met you and I'm saying, who was this lady saying to me to watch your suitcase? And then I said to you, ma'am, do you know you don't know me? I might steal your stuff. You're not going to steal it. And that was your smile and your enthusiasm. So even if I were going to steal it, you couldn't steal it from you. You mentioned how some people soothe themselves, just going back a step. And you said you shouldn't do it by food or drink. But I bet you there's a food or a drink that when you're a little bit bummed out, you might say, I'm going to have a piece of this or that. What's your food or drink that you
Oh,
soothe
such a
a
good
little bit?
question. I'm a salt person. So a giant bowl of popcorn, I make it on the stove, like the old fashioned way in a pot. And like a giant bowl of popcorn just soothes me. And I can eat a whole bowl of it and not feel guilty. So that's my go-to, usually in the afternoon, not every afternoon, but when I could have a big bowl of popcorn, I'm very happy.
Michele will add to your qualities that you're a cheap date.
I
I mean,
am. I barely drink. So there you go.
Yeah. Actually, you said in one of your podcasts you used to drink, and I think one of your guests or you said I stopped drinking. I think that was one of the other guests who said they stopped drinking.
Patricia has not drank for about 7 months now. I still drink only on weekends, but I do drink.
I do a Dr. Pepper every once in a while. I want to go to Jay Moon, who had Jay Moon Fields. I think her show was "What's True for Me." What's true for me?
Hey, wait.
Hey, wait. And that's what I want to get to, the hey, wait. I love the hey, wait. What does hey, wait mean? I know it. I've heard the podcast. What does hey, wait mean?
Yeah. So there's so many good lessons out there and everyone has to find what resonates for them. But it's, if someone's asking you to do something you don't want, if somebody's making you feel guilty, if you have to say, hey, wait, what do I want? Hey, wait, what do I feel? So I love what she said on the show. She said, when you leave somebody's company, do you feel better? Do you like yourself after you leave someone's company? And that's a real telling. Hey, wait, you know what? Those people don't make me feel so good. So why am I still, going to dinner with them every Thursday night? Hey, wait, I feel really lifted being with those people. Those are the ones I want to be in contact with. So the hey, wait is the pause that we take to check in with our own guidance. How am I feeling about this situation?
And Michele, that also can apply in our professional capacities. It's more difficult being in any profession now, in my opinion, because of social media, the internet, AI, etc. It's very hard when clients, if you're an accountant and your client knows a little bit about the tax law, but not what you know, and you're getting second guessed. There's nothing wrong with being, explain that, Bob, or whatever. But there are times where a client will say, I want you to say this. I want you to say this in court, whatever. And it's up to the good lawyer, the ethical lawyer, to say, you know what? Hey, wait. I can't do that. In fact, getting back to our political structure, we have that lawyer who was fired for telling the truth about the fact that the court order was given about returning the plane, and he got fired for that. And maybe that lawyer who's now filed a whistleblower complaint, maybe he felt badly about, well, gee, where's my next paycheck coming from, or whatever, that issue. But on the other hand, the hey, wait part is, you know what? Damn it, I did the right thing. I did what should have been done, and I didn't just do something because someone told me I had to do it. So the hey, wait thing I took not only to be, when you're and I think you describe yourself as a daughter who, if dad said to do something, you did it. Even if it wasn't really what you wanted, if it meant you had to break a date with someone you wanted to go out with or whatever, to be home with dad for whatever. At some point in time, I think you said you grew up and said, hey, wait, I almost would call that your bar mitzvah, right? Bar mitzvah happens when you're 13 years of age, but this could be applied to saying that, hey, wait a minute, I'm now 29, 39, 49, whatever the age is going to be. Dad, you have to understand that I really want to go out with this guy. Comments, please?
Yeah. My dad and I, we had the most loving, crazy relationship because we didn't agree on a lot. So I, as the number one child, I always wanted to please him. But, you say 20s, 30s. I was probably in my 40s when I was like, hey, wait, I have a life too. I'm an adult. I want to make decisions for me. It doesn't mean I love you any less, but I need to honor what I want. So again, that's part of the growth process for all of us. I love my father. I love my parents. They did a great job with me. But also, you don't want to give up yourself for any other person or any other, people give them, give their time away, give their hearts away, and they don't take into consideration what they want. So it should be a give and take. So that's the hey, wait. Hey, wait, what do I want?
The hard thing, though, is when you get the pushback, and when you do 50 great things for your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever person it is, your sister, whatever, and then that one time you disappoint that person and you get, I won't use the word I was going to think of, crap for not capitulating. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm not counting, but I just did 49 wonderful things for you. And I did this one thing, and you're on, whatever. And it takes strength of character to say, you know what, I'm moving on from there.
It does. And that's where that internal work comes in, because if I know I've done everything I can, and some people's cups are just never filled, right? They always want more no matter how much you give. So none of us are meant to be a punching bag for another person. Sometimes people call up, they just dump all their problems on you and then they feel better and they go away. So it's really, hey, wait, I've been listening to you for like 3 years now, complain, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And that person might get mad at you. But again, the more you honor who you are and what you need, the more you will surround yourself with well-adjusted people. And my dad and I love him. We got into it. We went round and round, but at the end of the day, the love was there. We knew there was deep love. So we got over it and we went around it and we figured it out.
And he has his place in your heart that will never, I have a theory that anyone you've loved in your life, they own a piece of your heart.
Yeah.
And it's true what you talked about. In fact, another thing I'll say in this regard is I'm in a tough profession, but everyone's job is tough. Everyone's job is tough. But a little while back, a lawyer in a case, you and I will use four-letter words periodically on the phone because that's just that's our charm, right? That's part of our charm. And I think people are kind of a little phony saying, oh, I can't, like on TV, they won't use the word S-H-I-T. They'll just say the S word, right, or whatever. But this lawyer wrote an email in response to something that I wrote, and it was very vulgar, very vulgar. And I was proud of myself because I didn't respond to the vulgarity. And then about a month later, the lawyer called, and I hadn't called the lawyer since. I only did written stuff. because I wasn't going to get triggered. And the lawyer said, by the way, I got to say to you, I did something really bad, and I know you're mad at me, and my staff is mad at me because they all love you. And I could have said the word back, but I said, thank you, I accept your apology. And let me tell you, there was blood coming out of my mouth, but again, it's some of your lessons about who we are and how we deal with things along the way. I don't know how much time we have yet. I'm not watching the clock, but it's probably about 10 minutes more or less left. And I've got about 2 hours left in questioning. I want to get to show number 8. Unless there's one you want to get to before that.
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay. Show number 8 with Juliet Hahn. And she's your next door neighbor or neighbor in the area. Yeah. And she very quickly talked about, and tell us the audience what she does typically so they can get a sense for what work she does.
Oh my gosh. She's hard to put into a box because she's the chief marketing officer for a medical company. Yeah. She also runs a podcast on dyslexia.
Right.
But she's just a superstar at being herself. And that's the charm of Juliet. When I first met her, she had a podcast many years ago, and I met her. She would walk her dogs by my house, and she's like, listen to my podcast. And so I go on her podcast. I'm going to probably it was on her podcast, so she said it. So I listened to the podcast, and it's all about how she has a small bladder and she pees on the neighbor's lawns. So I write her back. I'm like, you walk by my house every day. And she's like, I promise I never peed on your lawn. So she's like one of those people that like what you see is what you get. And that is part of her beauty, charm, and brilliance.
And that's I had to give that a little background because, by the way, I hope to get her on my show. But she's had some difficulty in her life, and she was very honest in the first 3 minutes of your show about her dyslexia.
Yes.
My daughter's very knowledgeable as a special ed teacher. She happens to have taken a lot of courses in dyslexia, et cetera, and deals with that for kids. And the way she described that she has a difficulty, and a lot of people have difficulties that don't even get it diagnosed, but she was honest with herself about how that impacted her life. And something that a teacher said to her really threw me for a loop, and how she dealt with that in being herself was incredible. And that is, some teacher had the audacity. Should I use the word she used? I guess I should use it. She said a teacher in high school, I think freshman or sophomore in high school, when the lady couldn't read, and if you have dyslexia, then you really can't read. You have skips the lines, it's backwards, whatever. And the teacher said, you know what? You're retarded. I mean, that's as bad as calling a Jew, I'm Jewish, a kike. And you can think of the words for Italians, and everybody has, there's the N word, whatever. You don't use that word, the R word, in the 50s, let alone, how many years ago it was for her. She's probably, I guess, in the 60s or 70s. But she went down to the principal's office. She told the story. And I guess she must have sworn back at the teacher or whatever. And the way she handled it, the way she dealt with it, and the way she talked about, she being Juliet, how she's created her career around that, being herself, knowing her weaknesses. I would say lawyers are good lawyers who know what they don't know. So talk a little bit about how Juliet, without giving her whole story, has dealt with who she is, what her limitations are, to be very successful, very successful.
Well, each of us has a limitation, and it could be our superpower, right? Or it could be our nemesis. So it's really, first and foremost, not hiding it, right? Accepting this is who I am, and then going forward. And she really wants to change the conversation, because it's not that something's wrong with you, it's that you learn differently. And years ago, I studied with Brian Tracy, and there was, I forget how many learning modalities we got tested on. There was like 20 different learning modalities. So with 20 different learning modalities in the world, our education system deals with 3: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And if you do not learn in one of those 3 ways, you are labeled, something's wrong with you. But there's so many other ways to learn. So what Julia did, instead of shrinking, she burst out, and she really owned the weakness, used it, has a podcast about it, and is helping other people embrace who they are. Now, if you put a math test in front of me right now, I would probably run for the door. But again, that's not I always say math isn't my first language. If you can admit you're not good at something, it frees you from the grip of it.
For my Board of Education days, I guess, I spent 15 years in boards of education in 2 different towns. And there's heterogeneous learnings. There's not, every learner learns differently. And I'll give you an example. When I was at Yale, I was in a poli-sci class with my roommate. And he would sit there in the class, H. Bradford Westfield, who we thought was a spy. And he did all kinds of foreign relations, poli-sci stuff. And my buddy, Matt, would just sit there and listen. He might take 2 notes in the whole class. I would be the nerd, and I'm taking down every word that the professor is saying. And then what I would do is I'd go back to my dorm and go through my notes, and I'd highlight the notes. And that's just, it wasn't a better style. It was a different style, And so the way your friend Juliet dealt with the issue she has, and it's not easy. It's not easy. And she said there were classes that she didn't do well in, but she chose a profession that's great for her, and she's a good speaker. I think she does stuff for the NFL. Am I correct? She was involved.
Yeah, so she does a couple different podcast threads. So she used to do something with the NFL wives. I'm not sure if she's still doing that, but yeah, she's got her hands on a lot of things. And the biggest thing about her is she doesn't wait for it to be perfect. She just does it.
I have a client in a case, as I'm going through my notes, who always said to me, Bob, don't make perfection be the enemy of the good. Don't be perfection. And this client might typically do things 80%. And Bobby O is going to try to do it 99.87%.
Well, one of my when I was first starting my business 25 years ago, I was in a mastermind group, and they gave me the saying, go ugly early, meaning don't wait for it's perfect. Just put it out there. I was like selling workbooks and they had typos in them, but it's so, I look back now and I cringe a little bit, and if I waited till I had the resources and the money and the edit, I wouldn't have started. So just start where you are.
Well, and when I do a draft of a document, I couldn't do a letter to you, an email to you that doesn't get corrected. I mean, I just, and what I would do is when I would do an agreement, I would dictate the agreement or have it typed out, whatever, and then I'd revise it. Okay. And when I was a very, very young lawyer, my first or second year in practice of law, there was a legal assistant who didn't like me. I don't know how is it possible to like Bobby up?
Oh, I want to come back to that. You finish the story, and I want to come back to a point we were making earlier.
Go ahead, make your point. Go ahead.
Sorry, because you were talking about the teacher that said that to Juliet, or this guy saying this to you, or the guy that didn't like your insecure people want you to be insecure. So that is a big thing. I always say happy, confident people make you feel happy and confident. So if somebody's coming at you, they don't like you, it's because they're insecure, not because of who you are. So I said my piece.
And but what, tying into that is secure as you may appear, as secure as I may appear, everybody's got some insecurity. Yeah. Everyone has that. And how you deal with that in achieving what you can do is, again, not going to be a perfect resolution. You just do the best that you can to make who you are. Someone once said, I think it was on one of your shows, as a matter of fact, the topic came up where someone said that she was nervous. It wouldn't be a he so far in your shows, but she was nervous. And I've often said to you that I still get butterflies a little bit when I go to court or when I do the shows. And that's fine. Because as a young lawyer said to me one time also, I was nervous today. Well, if you're not going to have butterflies and be nervous, then get out of the profession. Then get out of it.
Because of you, I read Barbara Streisand's book.
Did you read it?
Yeah, of course. I loved it. And I love when she says she was having that concert for the political, in her backyard, and they were charging back in the day $5,000. She's like, how am I going to give them $5,000 worth of, goodness, and, her nerves and her, wanting things to be, the right way. So again, even Barbara Streisand, we all feel it.
And, going back to how people soothe themselves, one way she soothed herself was a lot of sex, a lot of different people. I can't read.
Now you're judging. That's a man comment. I'm going to tell you.
Oh, no, she was a woman. She said it. So it had to be a woman comment. Duh, I got you there, my friend. By the way, it's also interesting the way she described how she was such a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. And she would go through scene after scene after scene. And the rest of the crew would be, if she weren't so successful and so wonderful, they wouldn't put up with her. But she worked her way through, like all of us try to do the best that we can do. So in that story, I was trying to tell you about, I was a young lawyer, and this paralegal actually was an office manager. And I got called in one day, and I was told by one of the partners saying, Bob, you're wasting a lot of paper because you're revising a lot of these documents. And I said, well, how would you know that? He said, well, I have this thing right here. I said, so now here I am, like 25 years old, and the partner's like 55, right? In those days, old, right? 55. Yeah. And I said, how'd you get that? He said, well, I got it. So-and-so got it on the garbage. So here's this young guy trying to make an impression. I take my fist and I pound on the table. And I said, if you ever go through my garbage again, I'm leaving. You're going to lose the best young associate you've ever had.
Good for you. Just like Juliet.
That's right. It's like, not Romeo and Juliet, but Juliet Hahn. Yeah. And so, but that's something about how we have to deal with things and then own it. Yeah. So, have to own what we do. There were some other things that I thought that Juliet said also that I thought were pretty impressive. What struck you from her comments? Because she had so much to say about dealing with one's issues and being comfortable, again, in your own skin.
I'm going to riff on this because, I do these podcasts way ahead of time. So interview, I have they're all stacked up. So the conversation I had with Juliet was a little while ago, but, again, it's a lot of times I do a lot of work with people on, finding their strengths, identifying their strengths. I think Juliet mentioned the Enneagram. I'm certified in Myers-Briggs, Tilt 365, DISC, all these different assessments that really help people to see and highlight their strengths. And the more they can own their strengths, the more power they have. I did 2 clients yesterday where we went over their assessments. And I asked the one woman, I said, what did you think of your assessment? And she went, it hurt. I said, what do you mean it hurt? Well, it says I'm this and it says I'm that. I said, so if you're going to believe all those negative things it says, you also have to believe all the positive things because they far outweigh. And the perceived negative things are just things to be aware of that are helping us balance and helping us evolve. So again, know thyself. What is it saying? Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. I might be saying that. Yeah. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment.
One thing that Juliet said that I was impressed with was staying curious, asking questions, always trying to learn more.
Yeah, always say yes. Say yes to things. Go to concerts or movies or eat things you don't like. People get so stuck doing the same thing all the time. Next time you go out to dinner, order something you're not sure if you're going to like. Order a cocktail you might not know if you like. So what? You spent whatever you spent. But it's like staying curious is what keeps things fresh and exciting versus ordering the same thing all the time.
I'm a boring dinner date, I guess, because I order the same things. I'm not very. When I was in college, my freshman year of college, Yale used to have once a month was a fancy dinner. You had to wear a coat and tie like they did in the olden days. And I went to my first fancy dinner, and I'm eating this meal with all my classmates. I was in Jonathan Edwards College, and I said, "Boy, this chicken is awfully gamey." And some sophomore or junior says to me, "You idiot! You're eating rabbit." And I said, wait a minute, it can't be rabbit. So I sort of pushed aside because Bobby O wasn't going to try it. When my son did his college tour, he went to it would have gone to Tulane University, but the hurricane hit, so he couldn't go there, although he got accepted. And I think he had either crocodile or alligator quiche, whatever it was. Bobby O was not really going to try.
I'm going to challenge you now to order something new on the menu.
Yeah, I'll try my best. We only have about 4 or 5 minutes left, maybe 3 minutes left. Talk to me a little bit about, before I do that, I don't want to lose time. How do people find your podcast? Let's do that so we don't run out of that.
The name of the podcast is Write Your Outcome. And it is on all major platforms. It's on Apple, Spotify, you name it. It's on my website, keytounlock.com. But
say that again. What's your website again, please?
It's KEY, the number 2, unlock.com. And it's on my YouTube channel. But I'm going to give you this easy website. EnergizeYourResults.com has all my social media on it. So you could find, if you go to EnergizeYourResults.com, you will find everything, and you will find links to my podcast, links to my social media, more than you ever wanted to know.
I slowed you down because people often will do that quickly, and it's important to get out. One of my favorite things you've done was on a TV shows or podcasts with Ernie Anastas, an all-time great sports announcer. But we only have a few minutes left. Here's what I'd like you to tell me. because you're such an avid learner and you have so much energy and you have great plans, do you have sort of a vision for yourself? And by the way, I had a client one time who said to me, "Hi, my name is Ted so-and-so, and I have a vision." I thought about that last night as I'm getting ready for your show, and he became very successful. Do you have plans for yourself where you think you'd like to be 3 to 5 years from now, or are you just sort of happy where
Yes
you
and
are?
no. So I'm a big goal setter. I have a new book coming out. I just did the podcast. It's my 25th anniversary. There's some good things coming there. I'm publishing a coloring book. So while I'm always in motion, I learned when I wrote my first book that my number one goal in life is to be happy. Happy in the moment, not happy tomorrow, not happy about yesterday. But when you really find, thank you, happiness is a habit. When you find that joy in the now, all the other things fall into place. As for future plans, I plan to keep doing this until I can't talk anymore. If you wheel me into my wheelchair and I'm still talking, I am still doing keynote speaking. I'm still doing, I probably publish another book or two. But really, it's all about the joy for me. I made a decision a long time ago that freedom and joy were the most important things in my life.
By the way, even after you pass, you'll still be talking to me if I'm still
Yes, I
around.
will.
I'm older than you are, but Michele, you're wonderful as always. I really enjoyed today. I enjoy listening to the podcasts. I look forward to our next show, and I hope to read your book soon. It's coming out. When I talked to you the other day, you said it's almost ready, and I said,
It's
"Get
so
off your
close.
get off your you know what, and get it done." Michele Phillips, thank you so very much. I'll see you again very soon. This has been Bobo Potsner. I encourage you to watch her podcast, and you'll have a great time. Welcome aboard. Thank you very much. Shalom.